You're in the booth again Sunday, 49ers and the Cardinals.
That's right. Filling in for old G-Pop again this week. And home opener. Feels like it's been a month since the Niners have played a game at home, and that was a preseason game. So, and did Brock play in that game? I can barely. No, he didn't.
No, he only played in the
Raiders
preseason game against the Raiders. This is, I find it kind of interesting that it used to be the 49ers had this tradition where they'd wear their white uniforms, their road whites at home during the preseason, and then they'd wear the traditional red jerseys during the regular season at home. And this year is the first time ever that they're going to be wearing their white uniforms, their white tops for a couple of games at home. And it all goes back to that game week 5 last year where it was a hot day at Levi Stadium. And the 49ers were outscored 14-0 in the second half against the Cardinals. And so here we are, the 49ers in the throwback whites, and the Cardinals will be wearing the red jerseys on Sunday.
It's hard for me to pick, but the throwback whites might be my favorite 49ers uniform. I think for the players, it's probably really cool to wear the all white. But then you see the red, and the red is so rich, that the Montana red, as they call it, Matt. Mm-hmm. That's also a great uniform.
What they're calling it these days?
I think that's what it's called, but I call it candlestick red. But I love these uniforms. It was funny. I heard Kyle Shanahan say on Thursday on KNBR that he had to decide in April whether or not they were going to wear these uniforms today. Information you already knew, but I like them. I like them a lot. What's the weather going to be? 80, 82, 83?
Like mid-80s. But you know what they say? It's always sunnier and hotter at Levi Stadium. You know how it never rains at Autzen? That's
I do know that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the saying at Levi Stadium.
California hot, 85.
Yes.
A Fresno winter, 85 degrees.
So what, as you prepare for this game, kind of what stands out to you about I'll just leave it wide open like that. Where do your eyeballs go? When you're taking notes and preparing, just what do you think, generally speaking, about this 49ers Cardinals matchup?
Well, historically, in recent history, they're not close games. They're both 2-0, which, they're in the 49ers Cardinals history, there's not a lot of games where it's early, but where they're both kind of doing the right thing. Yeah. And 3-0 is a big deal in the NFL in terms of percentage chance of making the playoffs. Obviously, the Brock Purdy, will he or won't he? I said the other day, after seeing some of Brock bounce around or not really bounce around on Wednesday, I'd be pretty surprised if it's not Mac Jones this week. Mm-hmm. And also, if Brock can't move as well as he does, then that negates some of the advantage of having Brock Purdy at quarterback. And then I think for Arizona, they're 2-0. I think, like the Niners, have squeaked by a couple of games, although they were dominating Carolina and Carolina came back on them. 49ers found ways to win. I think San Francisco's played a little better overall than Arizona has. Arizona, to their credit, has won games with an offense that is definitely not clicking yet, but Kyler. Mm-hmm. Kyler can be a problem. And then the last thing that stands out to me, Matt, just overarching, is I think this is better. This talent up front, it's not Seattle's defense up front, but it's certainly better than the New Orleans defense that didn't put a ton of pressure on Mac Jones, or at least that the Niners O-line did a good job against last week.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to hit a couple of these things. For Brock Purdy, and we're recording this on Friday morning. Kyle Shanahan will speak to the media a little bit later in the day, and I would think that he would maybe be a little bit more forthright as far as what the plan is. But I agree with you. I think Mac Jones starts this game. The question for me would be, is Brock Purdy the number 2, or is he the emergency number 3? And a lot of that, or all of that, has to go with Adrian Martinez, who's on the practice squad and was the backup last week. Do the 49ers want to bring up 2 guys from the practice squad who aren't Adrian Martinez? In other words, and I guess even if they bring him up, they could have him as the emergency 3, but I don't know if that'd make a whole lot of sense. My guess is that Purdy is active for the game, but he's the number 2 because the backup doesn't get many, 11 on 11 reps in practice anyway, and so that would kind of go with the way the practice week has gone, with Mac Jones being the guy who's taking all the reps. So it seems like Purdy is in a much better spot than what they had initially feared. And so I think it's, darn near a fait accompli. He will be the starting quarterback week 4 against Jacksonville, but I don't see it happening this week. The other thing you mentioned, Kyler Murray, I just think that 49ers are in a better spot now against Kyler Murray because their team speed is so much better. The young guys, I'm thinking of, D Winters. Think about that 50-yard touchdown run that Kyler Murray had early in that game. It was Devondre Campbell, who couldn't run, just kind of getting washed out. And then Talanoa Hufanga, who, good player, but not exactly a speed burner. He comes crashing down the line of scrimmage. He had all the uncertainty at, nickel back and outside corner and all that stuff. And now you basically have, if you're the 49ers, D Winters, who's an every down linebacker who can run. You have Marquis Siegel at safety who can run. And you have Upton Stout at nickelback who can run. So I think the 49ers are in a much better spot as far as defending Kyler Murray than maybe they've been ever since Kyler Murray's been in the league.
Football is rocking and rolling, and I've teamed up with DraftKings Sportsbook to have some football fun. Here's the promo code. New customers right now. You sign up, use the code GUY2025. You bet $5, you instantly get $200 in bonus bets. Boom! And now we're getting after it. There's football Friday. There's football Saturday. There's football Sunday. San Francisco is a 3-point favorite against Arizona on Sunday, like that. There's football Monday. On and on and on and on and on. And it's all right there at DraftKings Sportsbook. And of course, for the thrill of live betting, you can bet on in-progress games right as they happen. And if sports betting is not available in your state, there is DraftKings Daily Fantasy Sports. Fantasy Sports, which still gives you a chance at cash prizes. So there it is, all the instructions you need. New customers, you bet $5, you get $200 instantly in bonus bets when you use my code at sign up. That's promo code GUY, GUY 2025. Yeah, that Kyler run last year was over after about 10 yards and still had 40 more to go.
I think at the 10-yard mark, he had basically held the ball out and was starting to celebrate the touchdown like 40 yards from the
end.
He
waved bye-bye.
He did. Unlike Geno Smith, who later in the season did the 9-9.
the Steph Curry?
Yes.
Yeah. I just, I think there's scars with Kyler. So I think it's a great kind of, is this different? The first 2 weeks, the Niners have won games that maybe they would have lost last year. Mm-hmm. And so you go, okay, maybe things are different after a preseason that felt like it was more the same with all the injuries. And I think holding Kyler in check would be another sign that things are a little bit different this year. And again, like James Conner's running it for 3 yards a carry. They cannot, they're free. What did Mike Pettin once say after the Browns beat the 49ers? He said, everyone's telling me that our house is on fire, but look at them, or something along those lines. Right now there is some stress around Arizona about their offense because they can't get Marvin Harrison the ball. Mm-hmm. Kyler's yards per attempt is pretty low. And now they've got kind of the same, their quarterback's not hurt, but they've got injury issues, right? Their slot corner is one of the best in the league. Garrett Williams, he's got a knee issue. Is Will Johnson going to play? Is Max Melton going to play? Their other two corners. So they're a little beat up in their second. They're very beat up in their second.
At the same time, though, Guy, I would say if the Cardinals feel like they can afford injuries in their defensive backfield, this would be the week. Because the 49ers, I mean, they're in such flux at the wide receiver position, and I don't think that Juwan Jennings is going to be out there. So that means Kendrick Bourne's going to be out there. And basically, at the wide receiver position, it's been Ricky Pearsall and who knows who else, because nobody else has practiced much at all. And you even saw it in that game against New Orleans where, as you know, this is nothing new. They've always used him in a way like this, but now Christian McCaffrey might be their second best wide receiver.
Mm.
I mean, think about it. I mean, he lined up at wide receiver, mostly in the slot, but he lined up at wide receiver a lot in that game against New Orleans. They just don't have anybody that they can rely upon. And you see that by Kendrick Bourne showing up on a Monday and playing 30 some odd snaps on a Sunday. So it's Ricky Pearsall, it's Kendrick Bourne, and then beyond that, it's fill in the blanks of guys we don't, who haven't been around and aren't up to speed in the system.
And tight ends, right? This is usually a Kittle game. The Cardinals, he kills everybody, but he really makes life difficult on the Cardinals. So is this is Jake Ton just getting 4 targets this week? I mean, maybe.
Those two guys, you know what? Those two guys have done a really good job. I mean, I know it's only been one game and 3 quarters or something, but what Tonjes has done, what Luke Farrell has done, combined, they're not George Kittle, but combined, they're not bad. One's a blocker, one's more of a receiver. 49ers have had 3 tight ends catch touchdown passes in the first 2 games, which nobody had that on their bingo card.
No, and I would say, I think what's impressive about those guys too is both of the 49ers games, there's been an in-game injury, not a carryover injury. So Kittle gets hurt week 1, they have to adjust. Juszczyk gets hurt week 2 in the game, and they have to adjust. And, he's obviously got the concussion. So obviously they knew George wasn't going to play going into week 2, but there's so much interchangeable responsibility, especially with Kittle out, between Juice and the tight ends, that they've had to adjust on the fly both times, and they've done it both times. So, no, you're right. A lot of credit. Neither of those guys scored a touchdown before this year. And you're playing with George Kittle. You're like, well, I'm not getting a touchdown on this team. And they each got one. So,
yeah, I know people were asking, on one of our shows, somebody's like, is this the year that Luke Farrell scores a touchdown? So I think it was like 67 games in his career, 4 years in Jacksonville, hadn't scored a touchdown.
Not even in the preseason, Matt. He never scored a preseason touchdown.
And so my answer was, no, he's not scoring a touchdown.
Tariq Owens had a preseason touchdown before Luke Farrell.
That's right.
About that.
By the way, you mentioned Juszczyk. I think he'll play. Concussions are difficult to predict, so we don't know, how he woke up feeling this morning. But the fact that both he and Saran Neal, who's a core special teams player, were out there in their blue non-contact jerseys, that signifies that they've made it through 4 of the 5 stages required to get clearance from the return to play protocol. So it's trending in a very positive direction for both Kyle Juszczyk and Saran Neal.
Okay. Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
2 weeks of Brian Robinson Jr. How do you think it's gone? And where is Isaac Guerendo's place in this, you think?
I think it's gone well for Brian Robinson because, how many ever snaps he was, let's see, I think they played 71 snaps and McCaffrey was on the field for 55 of them, which, is still a lot, but it's probably less than what we've come to expect when McCaffrey's out there. So I think as Robinson goes on, he'll take a little bit more playing time, keeping McCaffrey fresh throughout a game and throughout the season. So from that standpoint, good. Robinson is a plotter, right? I mean, he's just, he's a power back. He'll try to run over you. He's not going to juke anybody. He's not going to be picking up huge yardage. I think Kyle just feels more comfortable with a veteran guy who's played a lot of football as opposed to Guerendo, who's more of a home run hitter. So, whether it's Guerendo falling out of favor or they just don't have enough carries to go around to keep 3 backs, get 3 backs out there. You don't ever want to say like, oh, they'll need Guerendo at some point because that kind of intimates that you're expecting injuries at some point. But I think maybe I had a higher opinion of Guerendo just as a home run hitter than the coaching staff appears and to have. And whether that's pass protection, that's probably a big deal. Man, it's tough to get out on an NFL field if you're a running back, if you don't have the pass protection buttoned up. And so with McCaffrey, who's, such a good all around running back, pass protection included, Robinson, the same thing. I mean, I would feel from an offensive standpoint, it brings more punch to the offense to get Garindo out there. But I think it's just more about keeping the pieces moving and not making the disastrous mistake. So what's your take on Garindo?
Well, I think that's true. I mean, I think, the fumble issue is beyond an excuse, right? Like, and I don't mean I just mean fumbles in general for Shanahan. Yeah. The only guy who can fumble and come back there's only one, 23 can fumble and come back on the field on the next series, which is fine. And
can I add one thing?
Yeah.
It wasn't, I had forgotten until someone with the 49ers reminded me yesterday that, I mentioned something about, that game against Arizona and just, like the weather and, did that play a factor or whatever. And then the person says to me, well, Jordan Mason's fumble at the 8-yard line didn't exactly help either. And I'd kind of forgotten about that. I mean, they were ready to win that game. Mm-hmm. They were ready to make it a 2-score game midway through the fourth quarter. And Mason, I think it's like got a first and goal run at the 8-yard line or something. He fumbled, and that gave the Cardinals the opening. And I thought, that's right. And I'm not saying that that's a reason he was traded, but still so many months later, a year later, that still kind of haunts this team a little bit, that letting that game against the Cardinals get away.
It is worse than missing field goals for Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah.
I think our history tells us that. Now, I guess you can't replace a kicker in game the way you can a running back. But the only point I wanted to make on Brian Robinson is I think it's probably really hard to be a player who gets, and I think who gets 15 carries a game and now gets 7.
Mm-hmm.
I think there is a rhythm to playing a lot of positions, and running back has to be at the top of the list. Like I would imagine a running back would say, let me get 2 yards a carry for 5 carries to start the game. Just keep giving me the ball and we'll figure this thing out. And so I would imagine what I'm getting at is I don't know if hope is the right word. Anticipate feels too optimistic, but I wouldn't be surprised if in a month we look up and Brian Robinson is a more effective running back than he's been. 3.5 yards per carry is the lowest of his career. It's only a 4-year career, but 3.5 yards per carry is low for him in an offense where running backs they have highs, not lows when it comes to their, averages. So I think there's probably a little more to Brian Robinson than we're getting at this point. And I think the only thing to do is to keep giving him the ball.
The point you make is and I'm not telling you what point you make.
Make it better than me, please.
Well,
edit that, please.
No, I think what you're getting at here, at least the way I interpret it, is his style of running lends itself to being more effective the more he touches the ball, right? I mean, he's this battering ram style, and I don't know if it's a real thing, but like, wearing down a defense. And, he's not going to be the guy who potentially Garindo could become, where, he has 2 carries. One of them is a toss sweep and he takes it for 35 yards. That's not Brian Robinson. Brian Robinson is more, 1 yard, 3 yards, 2 yards, 8 yards, 12 yards, 1 yard. He's like, it's kind of a quantity, it's more setting it up and just being patient. That's probably a Brian Robinson running game is one built on patience. It's like, okay, just keep giving it to him. He's gonna get one here. He's gonna start wearing them down, and then once you do, then it becomes 5 yards, 6 yards, 7 yards, 5 yards. So maybe that's where he hasn't been as effective, and also he doesn't know the offense in and out. But the question I would have then is, will the 49ers ever get into that situation as long as they have both McCaffrey and Robinson healthy, that they have the luxury of having that patience with Brian Robinson to just keep feeding him the ball, 4 or 5 times in a row?
Maybe. I mean, it's a good question. I think it just takes a little longer because you do want to get Christian on the field. But I also think that the way we talk about running backs in this offense is similar to quarterbacks. And it's the conversation with Mac. Yes, it's a great system for quarterbacks once you learn it, but it's complicated.
Yeah.
So if you can do the things that are required once you learn it, then it's a very effective system for quarterbacks. I think there's probably some similarities with running backs. Like, it still is a very precise offense for a running back, right? You don't get to go out there and just create and do whatever you want. You have to be at the right place at the right time, and then you get to create. So I would imagine for him, there will be, as you said, like, does he know the whole offense or does he know the game plan? Those are two different things.
Right.
So I think there's more coming. Not that we need to spend this much time on Brian Robinson, but
yeah, I just want to make one point. Christian McCaffrey said last week, sometimes it is better or easier to learn the offense game plan by game plan. And what we mean by that is, when a guy comes in the off season, it's basically, I think, their teaching method is whole, part, whole. Like, they learn the entire offense and then they kind of whittle it down and start kind of compartmentalizing it. And then, they learn it all again in training camp. And when a guy like Brian Robinson, who came in late in training camp, it's basically, I don't know what the number is, but, here are the 80 plays, 60 plays with the different formations in this week's game plan. Learn these plays. You don't have to know what we ran off of this formation 2 weeks ago that helped set up this play. You just have to know these plays, and then we'll deal with all the other stuff in the off season when we have time. But just these are the plays you have to learn this week. And then next week, there will be a lot of carryover, but there will be some new plays you have to learn.
What else you got? I got one for you too.
Okay, let's hear it.
Is the Robert Saleh defense back? I mean, it's different, but like, are the Niners a good defense?
It's so different. I'm not going to say they're a good defense yet because I think the Saints offense isn't very good. I think the 49ers had a lot of breakdowns. They made it too easy on the Saints in week 2. I think they need to tighten up their zone coverages. And I would suspect this game, there will be a lot of zone coverage because the last thing you want are defensive backs running with their back turned down the field and the linebackers running down the field with running backs or tight ends and leaving Kyler Murray to escape through, the B gap. And now he's off to the races. So I don't know if I would say that, but I will say this. I think that this is a work in progress with their defense and all those young guys. They look good. Like, there's a lot there. There's a lot there with the guys on the back end we talked about with Siegel and Stout. There's a lot there, I think, with D Winters, who can get better. And then you look at that defensive line and Alfred Collins starts to look like, okay, I can see why they took him in the second round. But Michael Williams, holy cow. I mean, he's already one of the most important players on that defense because of the number of snaps that he eats up on the defensive line, whether it's base end or moving inside and rush the passer. So I think it's I think it's evolving. But I do think that what we've seen from Saleh is that it'll be kind of like, it'll be a game plan to game plan thing. I mean, think about like Luke Gifford started week 1 at the Sam linebacker. He didn't even get on the field in week 2, not because he got benched. It was because they decided the best way to go against the Saints was to play big nickel with Jair Brown taking that spot and playing a lot of standard nickel with Upton Stout. So it's kind of like every week it's like, okay, how are they going to play it defensively this time? Are they going to be mixing in more man, more zone? But when in Robert Saleh's first incarnation as the defense coordinator of the 49ers, I mean, they were so predictable, but in a good way. It was like they had the horses. So it's 4-man pass rush and play cover 3. Now there's a lot more creativity going on with that defense, and they have the young guys that so far appear like they can pull it off.
Yeah. There was definitely a preseason take that I thought, is this a little rosy of a take? Like, oh, early season road games and young players, and by the middle of the year, they're really going to hit their stride. Mm-hmm. But I'm kind of buying it after watching this defense in 2 weeks. Not there yet, but, I think the fact that all these guys who were not healthy in the preseason are healthy now and just able to get on the field and play and get reps and grow from week to week. This is another week where I think Micah Williams and Alfred Collins can play well. The Cardinals' offensive line is not a dominant offensive line. And, as you mentioned earlier, I think you alluded to this earlier, like defending Kyler is not about getting upfield as quickly as possible.
Right.
It's about keeping him in the pocket. And so that fit Michael he's not a guy that's going to freelance all the way upfield. He is just collapsing the pocket. Collins can he just hold the point, that sort of thing. So I think it's another fun week for them.
Yeah, and it's not here's where I think the 49ers have an advantage over what they had last year is that it's not about a spy, let's put D winners on him and just make sure that everywhere Kyler goes. No, it's about rallying to the ball. It's about having eyeballs on him, not changing up the defense. It's just making sure that, like you said, like kind of controlling him in the pocket and whenever he escapes, have guys who can run and take him down and keep those scrambles to a minimum. So, I think the 49ers they're in a good spot when you consider they're 2-0. They won. They've kind of held serve, winning 2 games on the road that they should have won. They did. And now they come home and they face a 2-0 team. I don't even know what the point spread is. I would imagine they're favored, right?
Yeah, maybe it's 1. I think it's small.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yes. It'll be a good game. I think all these division games are going to be close. It's just how much faith do you have, Guy, in Eddie Pinheiro?
Niners are a 3-point favorite. I have faith in Eddie. I talked to Eddie in the locker room the other day. Uh-huh. He's not overthinking. Eddie Pinheiro's not overthinking guy. I don't think. You know what I mean? Like obviously he missed.
He's a lot like me then.
Yeah, he's a lot like you, just loose and easy and breezy. Maiocco.
And you know what? Didn't you? Oh, man, I don't want to bash on the guy now that he's gone, but it just seemed like Jake Moody was just, I don't know. There just seemed to be too much thinking going on, even in good times. It's just like, it was never easy. Talking to him, it seemed like, and Eddie was just like, for his first time, he kind of looked around. He's like, "Whoa, there's a lot of media that covers you guys."
Yeah, I think it's really hard. First of all, I thought it's been really interesting yesterday in his press conference and post game on Sunday. Mac Jones really opened up about, and you could read between the lines Sunday, and then he really went more in depth on Thursday about mental like all the work that he does because of how challenging it all is to keep the right mindset and breath work, stuff that Purdy's talked about. You're a quarterback, you make a mistake, they run you back out there 20 more times, you throw the ball that day. Kicker, it can really create a landslide on you. And it did with Jake. I think what's interesting, this week in particular, the kicker for the Cardinals is Chad Ryland. Chad Ryland was the kicker taken right after Jake Moody. He got drafted because Moody went off the board, and Ryland got picked 13 picks later, right? Which is also very high for a kicker.
Yeah.
And he was not good in his first year in New England. He was a 64% kicker his year in New England. And they cut him. Joey Sly took his job the next year. And then he went to Arizona last year.
49ers legend, Joey Sly.
Yeah. The Niners history is littered with 49er kicker legends. But Chad Ryland's a 64% kicker. After 1 year, New England, handles it very differently than the 49ers did. They cut ties.
Yeah.
And then he became like an 85% kicker the next year, 2 years ago in Arizona. So, or I guess that was last year in Arizona. So, was that last year or 2 years ago? This was Moody's third year?
This was Moody's third year. Yeah.
Third year, yeah.
I think he hit the game winner against the 49ers, right? Last year?
Yeah, he would have. That was him.
Yeah.
So he went from an unreliable kicker to a very reliable kicker in one off season.
And that's the way it works in the NFL. And you just never know. I mean, for Jake Moody's sake, I hope he can use that experience as a positive. You just felt like in the next place he goes, there won't be that pressure of third round draft pick, number 99 overall or whatever it was. And that was a burden that he wore with the 49ers.
Yeah. I'm into Eddie Piñeiro's he's been on like 6 teams.
Yeah.
But he's a soccer player who didn't play football till his senior year of high school. And then he went and played JC soccer. Like he came into the NFL with a very different level of scrutiny than Jake. And he obviously kicked at Florida where there is a lot of scrutiny, but
as successful as he's been, when I heard that he was coming in for the workout or, whatever, they were going to sign him. I mean, I had to go to Pro Football Reference, to refresh my memory on, okay, now who is this guy?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. He's with the Panthers. Okay. I remember that. Oh, he's also with the Bears and, he was with this team and that team. That's just the way it works. And I guess that kind of points to, those who say you should never draft a kicker. I mean, that's there's a lot of exhibit A's, but he's definitely one of them. It's like, yeah, you can get a guy who, Eddie Piñeiro, 1 week into the season, the 4th most accurate field goal kicker in NFL history, didn't have a team to kick for. And he's a young guy, or relatively speaking.
Yeah, 30.
Yeah, he's 30. He's still, for a kicker, that's probably your prime right there.
And I wonder too if the advantage that the Niners had when they drafted Jake Moody, that the advantage that a big leg kicker had 2 years ago, maybe it's a little different. I mean, Eddie told me he thought the fact that you can now work in the kicking ball versus using a stiff brand new ball, which has been the case in years past, adds maybe a yard, maybe 3 yards. He told me it's why we're seeing so many bigger kicks now, in addition to kickers getting better. That the fact that the ball, every team gets, it's been written about now, I think this week a couple of times, maybe you did, but did you write about this?
I did not.
No. Okay. So every team gets 60 balls at the beginning of the year now that they can work in. Like the kickers can use these balls in practice. They can rub them up the same way quarterbacks do. Right. And so it creates a more worked in ball. You can still maximize the PSI at 13.5, which is, I think, what the kickers tend to like, because it goes the furthest. And so maybe now a guy whose range was 50 is now 54. Ideally, you can hit a kick from, let's say, it's great to have a guy that can hit a 70-yard kick. That's great at the end of a game. But are you trying that kick in the second quarter where if you miss it, now the team is in plus territory?
Yeah.
No. So, maybe you don't need the biggest leg in the world anymore, because your average kicker can get a 53-yarder, which is maybe as far as you will want to do it outside of game-winning or end-of-half situations.
Wow, I learned more about PSI right there than I think I ever.
I think it's 13.5, but
do you think that's why Tom Brady was in the Raiders booth? Like, he's the PSI guy, he's the expert.
I did see that. I went, whoa! He's wearing I wouldn't be wearing a suit today, Tom, but Tom put the suit on for the Raider game.
All right. Well, we've talked kickers. This is probably anything else we should talk about heading into this week 3 matchup. By the way, here's one point I'd make is that 2 undefeated teams in the NFC West. And we talked about the 49ers last place schedule, the Rams first place schedule. And this is where it starts to come into focus, where the Rams, meanwhile, are playing the Eagles in Philadelphia. And the 49ers don't play the Eagles. Their NFC East team that they play, the Giants. So this is where you start to perhaps see an advantage for the 49ers, whether they win, whether they beat the Cardinals or not. The more important matchup would be how the 49ers do against the Giants later in the year and how the Rams do against the Eagles Sunday morning.
The Eagles, I saw somebody post, like the Eagles have lost like one of their last, I don't even know how many games. They're officiating the tush push different this week. We'll see. Tighter.
Just officiate it the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
I mean, that was kind of ridiculous with the very blatant false start that they got away with. But oh well. All right. That maybe tush push. That'll be our next long conversation.
Well, I think.
Speaking of tush push, did you see? Was it Jake Tonjes who just grabbed Mac Jones around the waist and tried to tackle him forward on a short yardage play last week?
I don't know. I don't remember that, but
am I making that up?
I don't think I bet you're not making it up.
Yeah. So that was their form of the tush push. It was the waist wrangle. He just grabbed him from behind around the waist and tried to push him forward. And they got the first down. Yeah.
Okay.
So keep an eye on that.
Okay.
And don't, you can use your own discretion whether you want to call it the waist wrangle or not.
I don't want any QB sneaks with the 49ers quarterback situation right now.
That's fair.
All right.
That's
it.
All right, guys.
Matt. Great seeing you.
It's always fun talking to you.
Yep,
and have a great call on Sunday, 49ers and the Cardinals.
See you there.